we're looking at ACDC. That's the align, clone, distribute, clone script. So this is probably the most powerful uh, line and distribution script for After Effects and possibly a few other applications. Okay, so it's got three sections, right? At the top, you've got your align section, followed by your clone and distribution section. Sorry, your distribution section. And then below it, the clone section shares uh, its trigger button with the distribution button. So as you clone, you will also be distributing. Right. Starting from the top, align section has two sections actually. One is to define your source layers, and then followed by your target layers. Now, when you align a layer or layers, you either align it to the frame or with respect to other layers. All right. So align is about moving one or more layers to the frame or to, I'm going to reset, sorry, or with respect to other layers that you selected. Now I want to show you something. So I've got a single layer selected. All right. So at the top here, it's got a double duty. All right. If you have a single layer selected and you hold down Shift and click, instead of clicking here, right? Instead of clicking here, you can select here along this row of radio buttons. You can hold down Shift and click. So notice what happens if you have a single layer selected. When you click on left, what's going to happen is its left edge is going to align to the composition's left edge. And if I shift right here, right, it's going to move its right edge to the right edge of the frame. So this center, top, bottom, Y center. Get the idea? So that's what happens when you click up here. Now, if you have a bunch of layers selected and you want to align their bottom parts or the bottom rectangles together, then you would select here. This is telling the script, hey, for all my source layers that I've selected here, I want their bottoms to align to the target bottom. Now, this part here is critical because there are different options for you to choose. Now, I like last selection because it's the easiest. Let's assume I want all the layers to have their bottoms aligned to this layer's bottom rectangle, right? To the bottom of its rectangle boundary. So to define or to designate a layer as the last selection, it's as simple as selecting everything, or Control A or Command A will also do, and then hold down Shift and then click to deselect and then click again to select. You can also do it in your timeline if you know which layer it is. I know it's this guy, so I'm gonna, over here in the timeline, it's Control or Command click to deselect, and then Control or Command again, click to select. So now we've designated this layer as the last selection. Okay, so all selected layers, the bottom rectangle boundary is now going to place my target to the bottom of my last selected layer's bottom. Alright, so you can click here. The shift click on the radio buttons also work here. So I'm just going to shift click here. And that's what happens. Easy, right? Now, I'm going to select all, deselect that, and super. So their bottoms are all together. Now I want them to be centered to this guy. So I'm going to select it So the center of this guy would be its X center. That's correct. That's our target, yeah? Then for us, the source layers also the center. Alrighty? So let's shift click here, and then you go. Then instead of reselecting everything, there's this button to reselect. Alright? So everything's selected. Now, I want my top of my selected layers to align to the top of my last selected layer. So shift, click. See that? Easy, right? If you have one or more layers selected, let's pick this guy, bring it out. Let's pick 2 layers. Okay, and let's solo them. I'm going to excuse me, center it. And earlier you saw how these work when you had a single layer, correct? It will align to the composition edge. When you have 2 layers, it also works if you check this box here. So now if I shift click left, it's going to go to the left. Shift click top. There you go. Alright, so the align to composition for selected layers works alone or works for a single selected layer and also for more than one selected layer if you have the align as a group set up. Okay, so if you click here, you can see these other options. So they're exactly the same as shift clicking here. Alright, so 2 ways to do those things. Now that you know last selection, you should know first selection. Some people's brain work differently. They may prefer first selection option to get things going. That's also fine. I just prefer last selection. Now, these 2 options are, I'm just going to bring this up. We're going to look at these options. What does this mean? All right, maximum. As you notice, it's got no X or Y designation. And that's because it will be dependent on whether you select the X options here, left, right, X center, or the Y options, top, bottom, Y center. Okay? So if I select the left, maximum order visually furthest means this, yeah? It's going to look at the left margin of the frame, all of the layers, depending on what you're going to choose or do. But in this case, it should be the leftmost, so all the left edges of the layers that you selected. And then it's going to calculate to see which is the furthest, right? And all layers will align to that point. Got that? So I'm going to click here. Oops, didn't work because this should be switched off. So what's going to happen now when I click here is this guy will stay put. It will not move. This guy will move and align its left edge to the left edge of this guy. See that? So if you saw, I made a mistake because I forgot to uncheck the line as a group option. And now if I pick on top, visually furthest will be this guy because now the margin will be from here, or the point of origin for calculating which is the maximum or visually furthest would be this guy. Yeah. So these are very powerful ways to allow you to align layers. So be careful here when you shift click up here, it's to align selected layers amongst themselves. And if you click here, which we will look at shortly after we do coordinate, things will look a bit different. All right, you get different results when you click here. And shift click here as opposed to shift click there. What we'll do. Okay, let's do, whoops, shift click. So they're both centered. And we're going to look at coordinate. Okay, I'm going to bring this down. So you can also do this, shift click here. Sorry, here. Whoops. There was an error because there's an axis mismatch. So I've selected Y here on the Y axis or Y coordinate. And then I want to move it along X. So there's a logical issue there. If you want to move along Y, your target must be along Y axis. Strike that. That now go X and X, then there you go. So as you can see, lots of ways to reach your target. Yeah. So test this out, play with it. It's insanely powerful. It should be able to do almost anything you want in terms of alignment, and see even more amazing stuff when we get here. Right. So I'm actually gonna bring it back here, and then these values are absolute values, correct? So if I bring this guy here, let's put this guy. If I select this guy, and X center. Okay, so I'm going to click here, shift click, comes here. Then now my Y center, I'm going to come there. So they're all absolute values. What if you want to input a relative value? Say you want to shift this guy, say 50 pixels to the left, top, right, or bottom. Well, to do that, you need to do this. If you have ever tried to do a relative move for your time indicator, you will know you have to punch in plus, minus, and only then it will work. No, same principles here. So plus, minus 50 along y-axis, we'll move it up. All right, we'll move it up by minus 50 pixels from where it is now. See that? And of course, you can continue punching it. So plus, minus. What if you want to go 50 pixels down? Well, you want to do plus 50. All right, I could have done a single plus, but for consistency's sake, the initial plus is to tell the script you want to do a relative width instead of an absolute move. So now I'm gonna shift click here. Now a shift click is just a shortcut so that instead of moving your mouse every time coming in click, you're doing it here, right? Directly on the radio button. Okay, so that's how you do absolute. Now another shortcut, if you want to reset the input box, right? Hold down Alt and click. Okay, and it will go back to default value. Like that. Alt option, click in the numeric input box. Right. Okay, I'm gonna enable all. Set it up a bit like this. And we're gonna do group alignment. Deselect that. So for all the other layers, I'm gonna set their bottom on to this guy. So this is the last selection, the last selected layer to its bottom. So now I'm going to shift click here. They're going to be aligned there. I'm going to hold this. So I'm going to click left. What I want to do now is essentially define a group. And my group has been defined earlier when I selected these guys, followed by this guy here. Correct? So our target is the last selection, that means this guy. So this group, its left edge, I want to move it such that it is aligned to our last selected layer's right edge. This is what I just told the script essentially when I made these selections. Align as a group moves these guys to the target layer, last selection. And for this group, it's left edge, so there'll be this layer's left edge to our target layer's right edge. And you can set a gap. Another shortcut, if you hold shift down and click in there, it increments by 10. If you want to keep increasing by 10, unfortunately, you can't keep clicking on there. You have to click outside first and then click in there. So that's the way it works right now. So I've set it up, and then I'm gonna shift click here. I can also click here. See that? So it's super insanely powerful. Now I've got a 20 pixel gap between this and this, right? This and this. I now want a 20 pixel gap between this layer's left edge and this layer's right edge. So this layer now becomes the last selected layer. I can keep the same settings because for the group, its left edge is going to be moved so that it's 20 pixels, so that there's a 20 pixel gap between its left edge and the target layer's right edge. So shift click here, and there you go. So you can use alignment alone to do distributions actually, right? For simple stuff, maybe for more elaborate stuff, the distribution tool is super powerful. I think that is it. Oh yeah, of course you can also option click here to reset, and you can set negative gap values, right? So it doesn't have to be positive all the time. There's the reset button if things are too busy. You're not yet fluent or comfortable using the script. You can always reset and start off from scratch, and hopefully less confusing. So just play around. It's just insanely powerful. Now we're gonna go to the distribution section now. All right. I've got a few superpower shortcuts, right? And it has to do with the distribution mode. So hold down Control Shift, click, and the shortcut will set the layer to the top left. If you click on this distribution mode, if you hold down Control Shift and click here, it will be centered in the composition. It will disregard the margins. Alright? It will disregard the margins. And then if you Control Shift and click here, it will be the bottom right. Same by Control Shift. You get the same result. So it will be Control Shift on this side. Right? So Control Shift here centers in layer. What if you have lots of layers? Same thing. Control Shift, and they're all centered. Alright, and one trick you want to realize is a quick way to distribute is to, if you've got messy layers, right, and you've got a very defined distribution goal to achieve, the starting off or setting them to the center is a good idea, right? So set them this way, Control Shift, and then it's easier to distribute. Now, here comes the beautiful stuff with the distribution order. A lot of distribution tools do not offer you this option. Alright, so they allow you to distribute based on gaps, for some, but I don't think you have all the options here, even setting margins and whatnot. In fact, let me show you margins quickly. So you can set 200 margin on the left, shift click, whoops, what happened? Oh, you can't do a single. Sorry, when you're distributing, you need two layers. There should have been a warning from the script, so I have to look into that. So if you shift click, and again, when distributing, you need at least two layers selected, otherwise you can't distribute. Yeah, for a line, a single layer is fine because it's going to use your video frame, yeah, or your composition frame. So anyways, as you can see, it's I've set a margin of 200, so it's followed it at pixel perfect. All right. Now you can also type 200 here. By a quick way, another shortcut, if you hold down Control or Command and click in here, the other input box inherits the value. Same if I punch 300 here and I Control or Command click in here, the other text, the other input field receives the number, right? And then of course, Alt click will remove. Now I'm going to go 200 for both left and right margins. You can see the arrows left and right. If you select vertical distribution, the arrows will change. All right, so this will be up, and this will be down. All right, so let's do it. Layers are selected. That. All right, so you can also select all and distribute this way. All right, why is it from smallest to largest? Well, that's just the way I've set it up in the timeline. And look at using the sorter. This is an insanely powerful sorter. If you work with a sorting script, you know it's really, really useful. So we've got the layer sorter here, and it's insanely powerful. So you can also do visual pattern groups, random, which is quite common. I think other scripts will have, but not many scripts will have radial. I don't think so. So go look at the video for layer sorter, and you'll learn how to use the radial option. Okay, so back to ACDC. So it's set up that way, but you can also well, it's already set up on width, but we can still do it because it's an invert option. Now, when you select an option here, if you select layer index, that means the layer with the smaller index will be distributed first, followed by the layer which is has a second smallest layer index. So it would be 2 or 3. Again, depends on what you've selected, right? Because distribution, just like a line, they work based on what you've selected. You can look at using the Add Layer selector to select your layers also, right? Just like the layer sorter is useful to help you to sort your layers first, so that once you get to ACDC, it's a lot easier to reach your goals. All right, so that's that. So we're gonna invert. So when I set to layer width, what I'm telling the script is distribute from the smallest to the largest. All right, so disregard the selection order. You'll disregard the layer index order. Those have their own options, and then these are the other options. All right, so what's the difference between layer width and say X scale? Well, X scale, because these guys, this script works with parented, and of course, if the layer is not 100% scale, or if it's parented, it will still work. All right. But sometimes you want the actual pixel count. That means after accounting for scale, the layer's own scale, and if it has a parent, its parent layer scale. So it will count all of that to get the actual layers pixel width. So it depends. So actually, what you're defining or what you want to look at is actual pixel size. All right, because if all the layers were parented, this looks bigger than this, correct? And if you set, say, X scale, you would think this has a higher X scale, but actually maybe this one has a higher X scale, right? Could be 1,000%, but its parent could be set at 1% scale. That's why it's this size. Get the idea? So if you want a true visual indicator of which is a smaller or larger layer, you would look at layer width. Okay, so we've selected that. Now you've got 4 distribution modes. So I'm gonna click on, well, we haven't seen this, so we'll do this. So selected layers, extreme edges. This is pretty straightforward. You selected these layers, or I have, and it's gonna distribute based on the right edge of the rightmost layer and the left edge of the leftmost layer. So I'm gonna shift click. So as you can see, because I've inverted the distribution order, we go from biggest to smallest. But because I've selected this distribution mode, it goes from biggest to smallest, right? And it also respects the distribution mode I selected. Okay, now we're gonna go with composition size. So let's make this 100, and then shift click here. So now it retains that distribution order, but now the left edge is at 100 pixels away from the left margin, and this right margin for 100 is at 100 pixels. So our rightmost layer, its right edge is 100 pixels away from the right edge of the composition. All right, so that's really powerful, right? You know, we've set up the extreme edges, composition size, and with independent margins. Um, oh, if I've not shown this, so if you switch to vertical, the arrows will change. So this will be top margin, this will be bottom margin. All right. Next, we'll look at custom size, and custom size allows you to set distribution from, or you can think of this as your distribution anchor. Where are you going to distribute from based on the layers that you've selected to be distributed? Okay. So I'm going to set this now. I think there's a bug here. Let's see. All right. So we're going to distribute from left edge. So there will be this guy, and everything will be distributed from the left edge to the last layer's right edge, and that distance will be 1000 pixels. Let's see, it's a bit off on the right edge. Go and 100. Sounds too strange. So as you can see, calculation is a bit off, yeah, for custom size. But it's only an issue with large layers when the overlaps are large. So hopefully that doesn't happen often. If you're dealing with smaller layers, you should not have an issue. There should be 1002. Yep, close enough. All right. So layers aren't too big. The issue is the overlaps. The script has issues with calculating for overlaps. All right. So otherwise, it should be fine. I'll try and get this fixed on hopefully you don't get this issue. Again, it's only for large layers. For smaller layers, it's perfect. Now, before I move on, I want to make one critical point. I think I've really mentioned it, but just in case. Uh, so, distribution order is critical because it's talking about um, which layers is going to be distributed first. All right, and then your where is it going to be distributed from for this option selected layers extreme edges. Um, the start and end is based on your selected layers. For composition size, the start and end is defined by the composition edges and accounting for the margins that you set. For custom size, you have the ability to set which layer. Let's assume I want to set this layer. Whoops. Yeah. So deselect. So this guy is the last layer selected, and I want to distribute from this layer. So I'm going to put a guide here, and then shift click here. So as you can see, this is our distribution edge now. This is insanely powerful alignment concept, but I want you to keep in mind which layer actually gets placed there depends on your distribution order. Alright, so a lot of distribution tools do not give you this option, or well they do actually, but it's based on layer index or selection order. So here with ACDC, you have a lot more options. What the tools don't give you is this option, right? Your distribution anchor. So you've got a few options here, and hopefully it'll be useful. All right, so I think I'm dragging on a bit too long, but we've got just a little bit more though. I'm going to look at this one now. Whoops, this is set a bit the same. All right, gap, that means no gap. I'm going to shift click. So 10, so let's add a 20 pixel gap. Where is it going to be distributed from? Left edge. So left edge is locked. All right. If I want this guy, it's left edge to be our new distribution anchor. And this one I will do. All right. Let's see distribution point. So it's incredibly powerful. Now, how to get the best out of this? I think depending on your final layout that you want, it's a good idea to center everything. So one click gets you there, right? And then from here, decide on how you want to distribute. Okay, and even for something like this, because it's so powerful, so many options. Yeah, even numbered suffix. You see the numbered suffix here. You can also make that an option. And not forgetting, you can go to layer sorter to help you sort your timeline. All right. Okay, so based on numbered suffixes, this will be 1, 12, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Okay. All right. Next, we're going to look at clone. So I'm going to shine the other ones. Whoops. Put it here. So clones work with the distribution order that you set here. All right. So I'm just going to click here. Disable. And there's done your clones. The numbered suffix is there. You can type a word also. All right. You can type words before that, numbered suffix. That's it. Easy peasy. Definitely. And use straight. So you can also align to the center, right? Right? Align it to the center. So just gonna click this. From here. So many ways. You know, sometimes it's not that I'm confused, but so many ways. Just one way to do it. I'm gonna do cons. You can use these options. Composition Y center. Right, shift click here and boom, they're there. So I hope you like this, enjoy it. This one bug, unfortunately, but it's going to affect you only with large layers with large overlapping areas.